So my name is Manuela. I'm part of the Power Apps customer advisory team. So we're part of engineering, and we work really closely with some of our enterprise customers to help them accelerate their adoption of Power Apps. And as part of that, we scale these learnings by offering templates, components, best practices. So some of the blog posts that you see on the Power Apps blog are from us. Some of the kind of templated offerings are coming out of our team. I'll later be joined by led from Schlumberger to tell a customer story on establishing a center of excellence. So he'll share some of his experience in his organization. Seem to have lost the Common Data Service logo on this slide. So you've probably seen this slide if you've attended other Power Platform sessions before. So the Power Platform is a low-code platform that spans the three clouds, Office, Azure, Dynamics, but it can also connect to your standalone applications, either through API connectors, through the on-premise data gateway, or through UI flows that just got announced. The platform consists of 4 components to analyze, act, and automate, and we've welcomed virtual agents to the family just at this conference to democratize the building of bots. The Power Platform is a core component of Microsoft's cloud strategy, and the core mission is to empower every maker to do more, to be more productive. Next to kind of these really great numbers, leading analysts like Forrester and Gartner have recognized the Power Platform have recognized the leadership position that the Power Platform has in the low-code application platform offering. But additional to these great numbers and recognition, we've got some fantastic customer stories that underpin everything that we do. And you've heard from SNCF in James Phillips' keynote. Autoglass were on stage during the Modern Workplace keynote, and the American Red Cross have a booth in the showcase to share some of their integration stories between Power Apps and Teams. So some really fantastic stories there, and you can check some more out on the website shown on the slide here. Typically, we see customers move from a proof of concept to a single application that they've got in production, and then they move to multiple applications that are in production. And on this journey, they're confronted with multiple challenges, such as, is this shadow IT? What do I do if my star app maker leaves? What about ALM? Is my data secure in this platform? And sometimes also, what is the role of IT if everyone in the organization can make an app? Am I still relevant? What are my Azure developers, my SharePoint developers meant to do now? So who is building those apps with the Power Platform? We see a large number of organizations where that effort is driven by the business. So the business are craving to own their own digital transformation, and the Power Platform is their tool of choice to do that. They're using existing skills that they've learned from PowerPoint and Excel to have kind of this low barrier of entry into app development, and they're the closest to the business problem, so they're able to solve it really quickly. But we're also seeing IT departments embracing the platform more and more. They really value how quick it is to go to market with an application, and kind of the reduced time to develop and deploy applications, and managing that centrally, rolling that out there. If you're just getting started, and I've had quite a few conversations at the booth during this week with organizations that are kind of coming to me and asking, like, what do I do first? How do I get started? Here's some tips that I've learned from Samit at Heathrow, who's a Power Apps champion at the Heathrow airport there. Pick something that has an impact but is not critical. Don't scare people with your first Power App. Find a paper form that someone needs to print out and carry to their manager to sign, and then carry to someone else to scan and do data entry. Replace that with a Power App and see the impact that it has. Find your Excel macros that are stored on someone's C drive and no one ever has the correct version. Migrate that to a Power App and see the impact that it has. Identify your citizen developers and build a community is a key part of that, and Led will talk some more about some of the campaigns that they're running at Schlumberger to identify that. But there's a high likelihood that you already know them. They're the ones that raise their hand first when there's something new to learn. They're maybe the troublemakers that push the boundaries. They're the ones that encourage other people, that thrive, that try to create a community, that try to solve problems. They're on the front line of those initiatives. Find them and make them champions, teach them how to use Power Apps, and teach them how to teach other people to use Power Apps, so kind of create that community effect there. Use tools that you've already got, like Teams and Yammer, to bring those people together. And something that's really important, quantify and measure your success. Did your Power App save trees, paper, time, productivity? Did it increase employee engagement? Write those down and compare what it was like before to what it's like after. And that will really help you kind of get that leadership buy-in when it comes to it, when someone's coming and asks, why are you doing Power Apps? So really quantify and measure that success. Don't just build an app that has a purpose. If you're already on your journey, you might see kind of you might get value through organic growth of the platform, through Office 365 licenses or Dynamics 365 licenses that you've got in your organization. Individuals might have discovered Power Apps and started using it. You will have kind of different levels of maturity and adoption of the platform across your organization. You will have champions that might drive this for their own departments. But the true value of the full saturation of color will come when you connect the dots between those champions, between those makers, and you break down organizational and geographic silos. In order to reach full saturation, we're seeing huge value in establishing what we call a center of excellence. It's a central function that's designed to drive innovation and improvement across your organization. And it can really help break down those silos that you might see and bring together like-minded people to share knowledge, to share success, to encourage each other to experiment, to be involved together in hackathons, for example, whilst at the same time providing digital guardrails, compliance, and governance to the platform. Through its central function, it can really drive the innovation across the business and really drive the business value rather than just departmental value of Power Apps. A center of excellence has responsibilities that range from kind of securing the platform, monitoring the platform, acting on events that happen in the platform, to nurturing. And that's providing technical guidance to your makers, providing standards, best practices, but also organizing events, for example, like learning lunches or hackathons, internal app in a day events. And then go on to the continued support and operation of the platform, where you think about your help desk awareness, your level 2 support, your application lifecycle management. So as a center of excellence, you've got kind of a broad range of overview of all those activities. And you provide those digital guardrails to your makers, but also work really closely with other IT, like operations departments, InfoSec, for example, to figure out how to govern the platform. For administration and governance, there have been some really great sessions here already. If you've missed them, go check out James Olenik's sessions and watch them online. So I just want to summarize some really key points, some quick tips here for that, before I go on to focus more on the nurture element and the center of excellence building. Assign your Center of Excellence admin the Power Platform admin role. That's coming out probably by the end of the year. In the meantime, use the Dynamics 365 Service admin role. That will give your Center of Excellence full visibility of what's going on in the platform. So you will see what your makers are building, what connectors they're using, how many people they're sharing it with. So you've got full visibility. Often people come to me and they compare Power Apps to an Access database. But the main difference with Power Apps is that it's governed through Azure Active Directory. You've got the conditional access policies there that you should set up, and you've got full visibility of what everyone is doing. There's out-of-the-box activity logging through Office 365, so you can really learn who's creating those apps and who's using those applications. And then secure your data at rest. So Power Apps doesn't escalate privileges. Makers only have access to data that they've already got access to. So make sure that your data is secure at rest. And establish data loss prevention policies to really early to avoid having an impact later on, and ensure that you prevent data leakage across different systems. To support your admin and governance story, there's obviously existing offerings through the admin center capabilities and through PowerShell and management connectors in Flow and Power Apps that you can use to create kind of a custom admin experience. There's a gap today in offering templates to implement the Center of Excellence, and that's where my team has developed the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. It's shipped as a solution in Power Apps, so you can install it as a solution. It contains Canvas apps, model-driven apps, flows that provide a starting point for your Center of Excellence efforts. It combines some of the best practices that we've seen across organizations that have established a Center of Excellence, and we put that in the starter kit to share that with you. You can download this and set this up in your own tenant, and it can help you figure out a strategy on how to adopt and govern the platform. It's meant to be template, so every organization is different. There's no kind of playbook that works for everyone. So this is a starting point for your efforts in establishing that Center of Excellence. Here's some of the components, and I guess the main thing I want to highlight here is that this is a continuous investment that we're making in sharing these best practices with you. So since the Business Application Summit in June, we've added quite a few components there, and the toolkit helps you get kind of better insights into what your makers are making, who they're sharing it with, what connectors they're using. In some instances, it might fill what's perceived as a gap in the product. So for example, the DLP customizer allows you to use a UI to put custom connectors into your business data bucket, where at the moment it can only be done with PowerShell. And similar, the set new app owner puts a UI over that interface to swap application owners out between an app. Again, that's something that can only be done with PowerShell out of the box. So we've built a Canvas app that does that and ship it as part of the COE starter kit here. One part is also the DLP editor, and that allows you to see what impact a change in data loss prevention policy would have on your existing applications. So if you update the policy, it would highlight applications that are impacted, and you have the ability to reach out to the app owner and mitigate the risk rather than breaking the application. And then you can also update the policy through the application. It's using the existing management connectors to do that. The toolkit also has a sync flow in place that stores all of your resources in CDS underneath, and that allows you to build your own Power BI dashboard on top of that. So it ships with the Power BI dashboard, but you can customize to show graphs and statistics that you want to see. So you can. It's a dashboard that spans all environments, so you can really see kind of makers across environments, apps across environments, and you can filter down your applications to see what connectors are being used and who's using them. One of the components I'd like to live demo. Let me just switch between the applications here. Something we hear quite a bit is that as a maker, I'm not aware of the processes that are enforced by my IT department, and as an IT department, I might not know who my makers are. So part of the COE kit is this developer compliance center. If I go in as a maker, I can see the apps where I'm an owner of, and I have a traffic light symbol that you can see here. That shows the compliance status of my application. So I can see this application is fine. I've provided, clearly I've provided everything that my IT department wants me to. On this application, I've got the yellow light. I'm not sure if you can see that on the screen. I can click into details, and I get a little bit more information about my compliance here. So I can see I've filled out the app description. That's clearly what my IT department wants me to do. I've published it within the last 60 days. Again, that's really good. But I've not provided support details. So through storing the entities with the sync flow, we're able to now collect metadata across applications. And I can now ask my makers to provide additional details like a business justification, like a risk assessment. So I can now fill in those details. I can decide on a business impact, so this one has a low impact here. I can classify my data, and again, because this is shipped as a template, you can put your own fields here. You can decide exactly what you want your makers to provide here. Put this in a category. I'll submit that, and immediately the status gets updated to green. I've now got a compliant application, and that in the admin view, I can see exactly who provided these compliance details, who didn't, and I can reach out to those makers to ask them to do that, to make them part of that process that I want, and break down that door that sometimes exists between the makers and IT departments and IT processes. Back to the slide deck. There we go. A significant part of Center of Excellence effort is that nurture element, that continuous growth and onboarding of new makers to get the full business value, connecting the dots between different makers, making sure they can support each other, to take that effort away from the Center of Excellence, but also providing a continuous learning path or training path for your makers. So if they get started with doing app in a day, what do they do next? What's your next offering for them? Kent was in one of our sessions, we had a roundtable around sharing best practices. He referred to this as digital inclusion. Ellen, who was in the same session, who's just sitting in the front row here, referred to it as fostering a digital culture in your organization, and that's exactly what that nurture element is making sure that everyone can be a maker, providing different onboarding paths depending on where your makers are coming from and what experience, what skill level they have. So are they a SharePoint developer now? Are they an Azure developer now? Are they a maker and do they have an Excel background, etc.? And with this, it's something like you have to find an offering that really kind of fits with the company culture, your company size, and where your workforce is located. So on the slide here, some best practices that we've seen from organizations that have a Center of Excellence. Led, again, is going to talk about his fantastic experience with organizing hackathons in his organization. Something that we've seen work quite well is offering internal app in a day workshops and following them on with a hackathon to solve a real business case. Doing show and tell sessions to bring everyone in one room and sharing kind of a success story that an app might have had, but also connecting different people to see what you're building, what are you doing with the platform, and really increases kind of interest there. And sharing success stories is really important. So you could do that through a newsletter or on a Teams or Yammer channel, again, just to really highlight the success that you're seeing with the platform. Creating an internal community, really important to connect the dots, and that can be a Yammer or Teams channel. You could set up an internal SharePoint site where you store your best practice documents and where you share kind of updates that you're seeing. You could have a monthly newsletter where you share those success stories, but also some of the product updates that you've seen that you think are relevant to your makers. If you were in kind of the morning session here and you saw that the Monitor tool launched within Power Apps, you could put that into the newsletter to make sure your makers are aware of it. As a Center of Excellence, it's kind of your responsibility to stay up to date with the platform and the announcements that are coming, and you can then update your makers to filter through that information. And something that we see more and more is think of a career path for your makers. what is their journey going to be like when they is there a role like a full-time Power Platform developer? Is that what you're thinking? Are they going to become a Power Platform expert in their organization or in their department? Think of the variety of how you want to kind of recognize that investment that they're making in upskilling themselves, and provide that training and support to them. And that can be kind of drop-in sessions or like regular office hours. It could be having an internal training resource that you build as part of maybe an existing learning path that you have in your organization, or you build a Power App for that. Have learning tracks for beginners, for advanced, so that no one ever falls off that cliff and doesn't know what they're doing. And yeah, it's kind of a huge focus is that evangelism and training area of a center of excellence. So you kind of redefine if your center of excellence sits within IT, you really redefine the role that your IT department has, where previously it might have been a department that provides the solution. Now you're just helping other people to create that solution here, and you provide those digital guardrails so that everyone can use the platform with full confidence and comfortably. I'm based in London, and I'm fortunate enough to be surrounded by like a truly inspiring force of nature when it comes to Power Apps. Our Power Apps user groups are often attended by about 100 people. And two of the people I look up to most are Ness from Heathrow Airport. She recently returned from maternity leave, and she joined the Power Apps champion community at Heathrow. She started from scratch. She used to be a security officer, just like Summit. And she said that through the platform, what she thought was impossible has become possible. She never thought that she would be able to create an application. She never thought that she would be able to do these things. And she now talks about it. She says, yeah, when I go home from work, I put my kids to sleep, and then I sit down and I learn more about Power Apps, just because I'm really motivated to kind of change how my department works. I've identified all these processes that might be inefficient, and I really want to solve them now. So she's doing that out of her in her own time. And then Simon from GSK, his internal community has over 1,000 members in 51 countries. It spreads their pharma, their vaccines, their commercial industries, and their business functions, and really breaks down those silos that they used to have across their organization. And they're sharing knowledge, they're working together on business value, but they're also identifying kind of similar needs across the organization and working on one single app to solve those problems there. Again, going back to the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, it contains a couple of components that help you with that nurture element, where a lot of it is organizing those like show and tell sessions, where a tool might not necessarily help you, but one of the key components is a welcome email. So that it's set up as a flow, and it sends an email to your new makers. So as soon as they create an app or a flow, they get an email, and that contains a link to the community that you've set up, a link to best practices. It shares kind of resources with them, and it means that from the get-go, you're wrapping your arms around them, you're making them included, you're making sure that they don't create the app and then don't know where to go and stop with their effort, because clearly they've had a business problem that they wanted to solve by clicking on that Power Apps button. The other part of that is it comes with a newsletter that combines product updates, so it connects to the RSS feed of the Power Apps Flow Power BI blog, combines that into an email that gets sent weekly, so you could forward that to your makers and make sure that they stay up to date with what's going on in the product. And the other part is a template catalog, so that's a Canvas app where you can share templates. So if you're developing components, if you're developing apps that you want other makers to be able to consume, you can upload them and share them through the template catalog here. So some kind of good ideas and good practices that we see that could really help you accelerate that nurture motion in your department. So here's what the welcome email looks like. It sends an email to makers, and you can, because it's part of Flow, you can customize what that email looks like to include your own brand style here. As a center of excellence, you can also use kind of existing skills that you might have from your Azure Web or SharePoint developers to create APIs that you surface to your app makers as a custom connector. They are then reusable, means they're consuming the same data source. You can create either Canvas components or PCF components to share with your makers, again, to make sure there's a common theme across all of your applications, or to solve a business case, to solve a technical case that they might not be able to solve with the Canvas app out of the box. And you could provide starter app templates, and there's one that Mehdi has shared on a blog recently to show how that can be done and how that can help makers create a common theme across their application. It means that they've got a starting point in terms of how the header, how the footer, how navigation looks like, etc. I'd now like to share some customer stories of what we've seen works really well before I hand over to Led. So SNCF, I think their story got mentioned in the James Phillips keynote. They provided learning paths to their maker, so they curated a lot of content in French for their makers, and they offer in-person training, as well as they've built a Power App to surface that training, so that as a maker I can decide, do I want to attend in-person training? Would I prefer to do it kind of in my own time using the Power App? And this way makers, like, they can choose they can select what they want to learn and the level of learning that they want to do. And as a Center of Excellence admin, I can see who's done which courses, I can monitor what they're doing, and I might be able to connect the dots between someone who's done a lot of Power BI training with someone who's at the beginning of their journey, to help them learn from each other. To make apps more discoverable, SNCF have built their own app catalog. Again, this is built on top of a Canvas app, and they're curating some metadata around applications, like a category, a rating, etc. So if I'm new, I can see what applications are already out there. If I'm new to a department, I can see what other applications are used within my department, and it helps the discoverability of applications. There's a fantastic community gallery where you can download some samples. Under AKMS Champify, you can find a solution that's been created by one of our premier field engineers. It's a solution where you can curate content, so things like YouTube videos, for example, for learning. And as a maker, I can earn points. It's a bit of a gamification of learning. There's a competition, so you can go up to the leaderboard and earn points there. So another great example of where things are shared in the community gallery. You can download them immediately, start using them, and get value straight away. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Led from Schlumberger.
All right. Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? You guys are fully caffeinated by now, I hope. Probably hungry. Some between you and lunch. I do have a couple stories, though, I do want to share, so you'll have to stay a few minutes. So, Lad Laird, I'm the director for the Power Apps and Mobility Center of Excellence for Schlumberger. So we do Power Apps and obviously native mobile apps. Schlumberger is the world's largest energy services company. We use engineering and we use computer science as well as manufacturing to help companies like Chevron drill and produce oil. So to get started, we began our journey in the Power Platform early last year. You'll see some data around that. Really is just a trial to see if our employees were interested in building their own stuff, right? We're a company of engineers and scientists. There's a lot of hunger for technology, but we really didn't have the right tool set in place to make them digital. So flash forward, over the past couple of years, we have 9,000 apps that have been created, 11,000 flows, and a ton of BI reports inside our tenant. So I hope to kind of take you a bit through that journey. I want to leave you, my whole goal is to leave you with a couple lessons learned from the pain and early decisions that were made that really tried to really help us get along that journey. So just to start off, who in the room has actually created a Power App personally? All right, fantastic. Fantastic. What was your experience like? Good? Bad?
It was awesome.
So very early on, last year, I did my first Power App, right? I created a SharePoint list click the create app button. I come from the mobility side, really, creating mobile apps. I wasn't honestly that impressed. I clicked around the UI a little bit, and I was like, this is for amateurs. I shut my laptop, and I walked away. The truth of the matter is that, oops, where are we at? There we go. Oh, back one. The truth of the matter was that we had a lot of great innovators in Schlumberger see the opportunity, start driving activity. We have one here. Alan's here with us today. I will tell his story in a minute, so hold on. He's one of those guys that drove us into action to get our arms around what we should do, how we should set up governance, how should we take action, and then, of course, to really understand what is Microsoft's vision for the Power Platform. For us, it was really important because we have a whole vision, and there's a whole presentation from MBAS you can go look at about our vision around digital strategy. But for us, we have a lot of big digital products in SAP. We need to have something that goes in between, that fills the gaps, that is also scalable, and Power Apps really, really met that for us. And when we understood that vision is, and we really were called to action to go build a center of excellence, because we want to do more than just embrace citizen development, we want to accelerate it. And for us, it's the way of taking shadow IT that we all know and love. I think I have a lot of fellow IT friends here. Bringing them out of the shadows, giving them a place where they can really innovate and get value from them. And that's a key part of why we love the Power Platform. So, okay, so what have we done to nurture people through our Center of Excellence? So starting off, you have to create community. You have to create a place for people to come, to connect with each other, get to know each other, share best practices, get access to training, understand what's even happening inside your company. All of you guys, I'm sure, we do Yammer, but all of you, I'm sure, have different ways to do that, right? I'm going to go through this in detail in a minute, as well as we needed some accelerators. And for us, that was these events we called hackathons, right? Next, governance. So I'm going to start this off with a story of how we kind of evolved our governance strategy. And keep in mind, this is not something that we just got together and it was this big conversation and we decided and then going forward it's set in stone. Governance has been something we've evolved over time. We've really evolved this. It's important because you need to evolve depending on where you are. Who here has a Center of Excellence yet? Anyone? A couple of people here, right? Good. So for those of you that don't, why have you not started like opening Power Apps? What are you guys worried about? Anything? You worried about the wild, wild west? Things going nuts? So we had a similar experience in the very, very beginning. Let me explain to you kind of the rationale of what we went through. We had this guy named Alan. His name's Alan Chai, right? This was April of last year. We had just released Power Platform a little bit before. We had a little bit of activity. I'll show you the data. All of a sudden, we had this app that some guy we didn't even know create over a weekend. And he was collecting, it was called Active Europe. He was collecting activity data in support of a great health campaign in Europe. Great story, by the way. You should go see it in MBAS. He tells a great story about it. And over a course of 3 weeks, he had almost 1,000 users on community trial licenses, right? So I remember getting a call from a guy named Ken Aguillard. He's our Office 365 Operations Manager. And he's like, who is this Alan guy? Does he work for you, your Mobility Center of Excellence? I don't know who this guy is. No, he's not work for me, right? What is this app? Oh, it's personal data. It's activity data. What do we do? Now, what we could have done is shut everything off and said, stop. But we didn't. We got together with our cybersecurity team, our data loss prevention team. We had a lot of arguments, honestly, of what action to take. And the first step was, all right, there's not a lot of activity yet. We're going to just wait and watch. We're going to see what connectors this guy uses and other people like him use. And we'll figure out what we're going to do. A couple of months later is when we really started using our DLP policy to in our default environment, to put some guardrails in place. You're not going to be able to tweet out intellectual property through a custom connector, right? You're not going to use CDS yet because it's expensive licenses at that point, and we weren't sure yet where our strategy was. So here's my first nugget for all of you guys. Just get started. Use your DLP policy. Like, what are you afraid of? It's just like SharePoint. Cut off all the custom connectors, right? This is what we did. Cut off CDS, and you still need to provide a pathway as applications mature, and we do have that as part of our COE now to give them in more fully featured environments. But just start. It's just like SharePoint data. You're not worried about SharePoint lists, right? I'm sure all of you have thousands of SharePoint lists. If you configure your policy the right way, Power Apps are just an extension of SharePoint. It's not the wild, wild west. It's really not. So just start. And even then, a lot of you, I'm sure all of you have released apps before. When you first start, nothing really happens until you hype it, until you get it going. And that's the story I'm going to tell you now of how do you hype it, how do you really get it going. So just get going with your governance policy. It will evolve over time, and that's okay. Start simple, put some guardrails in place, but get started. Because I'm telling you right now, the innovation of what we've seen has been overwhelming and shocking. And I didn't expect to be here telling you this story. So next, you have to provide, as a center of excellence, experts. As you start maturing and applications get bigger, they need us in big IT to help them, right? UX, architecture, data, connectors. This is really, really important. Alan has a great strategy around managing what we call digital cells and maturing them. But they need us in central IT to give them how do you build scalable applications? How do you go about architecture? It's very, really important. And last, we should do what we do at IT. We should build and deploy applications at scale. This is really, really important, and I'll tell you a story about Get Paid here in some of the slides. This is how you can take a small seed of innovation from an event like a hackathon, from your employees' just daily lives, and really 10x the value by having a team that takes it centrally and scales it globally. And for us, we really see how we're going to get a lot of our return on investment in the Power Platform by doing this. All right, so let's begin this story here. So the very first thing we did, early 2018, I believe it was March or April, is we just started with, oops, one more slide here. There we go. We just started with a Yammer site. Really simple. We stood it up. Here's the community. Here's the place you can come. We had a SharePoint page, just like Manuela was talking about. Here's resources. Here's the process, blah, blah, blah. Everything is available, so everybody in Schlumberger can create a Power App. Now, there's guardrails in place. It can just be on top of SharePoint or Excel, but anyone can create a Power App, right? We have global E3 licenses, 122,000 of them. So for us, it's part of that license. It's free. Go build a Power App. Anyone can go do it. But they need a place to connect together, get access to training, share best practices, help each other without IT. This is critical. You'll see leaders emerge in your communities that you didn't expect were there. You'll see people answering questions before you answer them. You know, we do have people, and we thought beginning, okay, we have to have people that are like curating and moderating and like answering questions. There are people smarter than you using Power Apps, and they'll answer questions for you, so that's really important. Another key thing here too, though, is just like any app or any website, you have to drive traffic to your community page. You got to have a campaign. All of us, when we release apps, we have campaigns, right? I guarantee your companies have digital signage. Maybe it's a home screen on your, we call it the hub. Maybe you have a lock screen on your computer. Maybe you have posters that go on the board. You got to hype it. You got to drive traffic to your community space, because this is your recipe to connect people, but also how you should build for your company, right? So it's really important for us. But you can see now, this is in the past year, very, very active, 4,000 people that are active. Core people of about almost 1,000 that post messages, but thousands and thousands of read messages. And that's really what we've seen from our community group. It's a core team that's very, very active, but a lot of people read it. A lot of people read it. So it's a really good way for us to get a lot of those messages out. But for us, we really needed something more than this. If we were going to really light the fire and get things going, we need to do something extra. And that's what I'll talk about here in this next slide. So this is directly from the COE kit. You get it for free. This is from the model-driven app. This is our apps over the past since June of 2017. So I want to hype that a bit. Just do it. Get the COE kit running. Definitely, really, really important. If you don't have a relationship with your Office 365 Ops Manager, maybe you are that person. But if you don't, just go talk to them, build a relationship with them, get to know them. That's another key nugget I want to leave you with. You know, we get a lot of questions either from the business side or the IT side of how do you start? If you're on the business side and it's, oh, I just want to go, how do I get IT to do this? First of all, build a relationship with that person. If you're sending them nasty emails, it's not going to work, right? Go talk to them, buy them coffee, buy them lunch, understand their life. This was another early win that I look back now and realize what happened is that Ken Aguilar, our Office 365 manager, and I, we connected, right? On the software side, the COE side, he's the ops side. We connected and we collaborated together and got to know each other. And from that relationship, forged the COE, right? That enabled us to do a lot of bigger things. And now Alan with a great strategy and all the apps we do. That was the beginning of it. It was a relationship. So if you just want to get started and there's some resistance, go build the relationship, understand people's concerns. People usually think it's the wild, wild west, right? That's what they usually think. It's not true. It's not true. You can get started with very, very little risk to your company. But build that relationship with your ops manager or go build a relationship with your business so you can just get started. So you can see here with us, we started in June, not much activity was happening. Back in about April 2018, a little more things happening. Any guesses what happened in June of 2018? Any ideas? Hackathon, our first hackathon. So another quick story. I got a few minutes, so I can tell another quick story. So I was in the office of one of our staff for our CIO. He's one of our directors, our VPs. And it was about, I'd say March of 2018. And he's like, "Lad, what are you guys doing on Power Apps?" I'm like, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. He's like, "You don't believe in Power Apps, do you?" I'm like, "No, I don't believe in Power Apps. I don't." He's like, "You need to do a hackathon." Really? Okay, fine. We'll do a hackathon. It started as a very small thing between two IT groups, my group of mobility, and we had another group that does SharePoint. And we hyped it a bit on Yammer, some home pages, and boom, it blew up to, you can see, over 400 participants, most not IT, most were actually from the business. Huge spread across countries. We were overwhelmed within the idea of how do we even organize this and make it work. It was spread across India and Houston. We had experts in place that really helped us. We did some training before and registration before. And for this first hackathon, people could hack on whatever they wanted to hack. So we thought really it was just a way to get the idea out there. But what we found out is that by giving people an excuse to check out of their job for 2 days, to learn something and do something is the accelerator. Because most people just don't have that kind of time. But if you can block it off, give them training, have them come in physically to the location or virtually, physically is better, and have them focus on something for 2 days with experts in place, man, you get a huge leap. And you can see it. Look at the data, right? Look at the baseline, the jump from 72, around 70 to even higher. So big leap for us. A lot of good things. Another great thing that came out of this is that we were able to have these great ideas bubble up. And that's for us, it was a big, big win. Second hackathon this past year, we talked about it a little bit before MBAS. It was bigger than we ever expected. We really were trying just to match what happened in 2018. Popularity really exploded. Over 1,000 people, almost 100 cities. A little shout out to Sarab and Pratap and Samir and the team from Microsoft. They showed up in force. Love you guys for that. Had 5 people in Houston, had 10, 15 people, I think it was, internationally supporting us. Fantastic support. You guys are amazing. Thank you for that. You helped really make this successful. Huge success. We had over 100 apps, final submissions. I'm going to talk briefly here in a minute about one of those apps. So you can see here in the data, look at the step function change. Like the hackathons for us were a clear winner because they drove change in volume. And the truth is, most of these apps are people just trying something that's okay. These apps can die. Because with Power Apps, it's so cheap to build something, it's okay if something dies. Let it run. Let it die if it needs to die. But the things that are important and highly impactful, those are what you want to invest in. Key difference from first hackathon to the second. The CIO and everyone was very excited about it, but as C-suite people are, they're like, I want to get higher ROI for my investment. So this time, they helped pick the ideas. We actually had a big campaign before the hackathon. You can see there on the right-hand side, this is where people could submit their ideas and vote them up like Reddit. So the community submitted all their ideas, all the employees. The top 25 that were voted up were then taken, and they were picked by the business of the ones they wanted, the top 15, right? And those are the ones that we opened up to everybody. They could pick, they could hack upon these specific ideas. And the big win was we went from people hacking on anything they wanted to hack on to focused business pain points, which is awesome because you get 100 different teams focusing on pain points, and you really get some great value that comes out of it. I'll talk about that right now. I think we're running out of time, so I'm going to skip this. We also had an app that helped us drive the hackathon. Hey, you're going to have a big hackathon? You need to have an app for that, right? And Power Apps was perfect for us. There's a great story around that, too, that we just don't have time for. So this app here called Get Paid. This is the app that was created by 4 salesmen over a 2-day hackathon, okay? We all have problems with accounts receivable. All of us do. Customers, if they're smart, like Chevron, right, they don't want to pay you because they got a bunch of cash they're laying around. We play the same game with our suppliers, right? They don't want to pay you. So what do? You got to send the salesman out. He's got a list of, for us, it's a spreadsheet. So we have an application called Get Paid, a legacy application. You don't want to hear the architecture behind it. And data gets dumped through GCP onto a Azure data warehouse, and then go into a data cube where we have a Power BI dashboard that looks at what's late, what's not late, and the status of all these invoices. That's dumped to a spreadsheet and emailed by one guy twice a week to 2,000 salesmen. So if I'm a salesman, I got to roll into Chevron, pull up my spreadsheet, filter by my name and my companies, and try and find out the status of my invoices, because my bonus is resting on this. I'm measured on DSO. Most of your salesmen are measured on days sales outstanding, right? So for us, getting these guys to hack on this idea on a 2-day period, it's been massive. Second place winner, part of the winners that got to actually be sponsored by IT to scale their application globally. And this is actually what we're doing now. This is the new UI, and this is what we do as a COE, touch the UX and UI some. But the big thing, last piece of nugget I'll leave you with, and I'm out of time. COEs, the biggest things you can do is give data. Do what IT does. Provide services, Azure functions, help them navigate IT. We have a hard time navigating IT, much less your citizen developers. Help them navigate IT and expose data to them, right? In the right way, in the governed way. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of innovation that comes out of it. So I just want to flash that up. That's the team. Alan here down in front, myself. You can see the shirts. These are actually our hackathon shirts for the second hackathon. I had to wear it and represent. So that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. The one thing I want to leave you with is that tomorrow we're running an interactive roundtable session, breakout code 2286 repeat. So if you want to share what you're doing with your peers or get kind of a conversation going, please attend the session tomorrow at 10:45. Thank you.